Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. I've lived my whole life within the confines of a happy, healthy little family. A family that is composed of me and my brother being the only children to my loving parents. And certainly not the only family members, as our family is composed of quite a lot of people. Everybody loves and cares about everyone else, and everybody's tight-knit and intertwined as can be with each other. Despite the happy nature of the events that usually hold up most of my life, sadness has assertively and abruptly found a way to creep into my life quite routinely in the past few years. About 3 or 4 years ago, my mother fell ill to cancer. It was very mild and benign to say the least. That was what was said to reside in her body, a minuscule little clot on her breast. Little did we know that that small little fella would end up taking away one of the most precious people that have ever visited this life. The cancer was misdiagnosed and mishandled. That mistreatment and slackness of the doctors that took over her case years ago has led to the endless chain of suffering and pain that my mother has had to endure because of this malignant disease. If I'm being quite frank, my mother's illness has been quite harsh on all of us. Although no one can deny the depressing nature of these events, no one can also deny the fact that my family has never been closer. We had never felt such a need to be present around one another, to a point where we were inseparable and spend most of our days in the hospital waiting for my mother's health to get better. Also, quite honestly, I don't think we've ever actually truly thought to ourselves that my mother was getting better, because the moment things started spiraling downhill, they never stopped. They just kept discovering more cancers everywhere around her body, and everybody just silently agreed upon the fact that it was only a matter of time before she would leave us behind, and we would have to find a way to live with the cruel, harsh world that we were brought into. Nevertheless, despite us expecting and waiting for the inevitable to happen for many years, my mother's death took us by surprise. She spent the last hours and even minutes with her loving family, individually chatting and discussing to every single person she's ever loved in her life, giving them the attention of a person amongst the living, yet silently being greeted through death's doors. Talking about the things she's wanted to do and the things she's regretted, basically just building the perfect ending for herself. And alas, when she left us after many years of struggling to love life and hold on to the pain, my mother didn't fail to leave a smile on all of our faces, even as she took her last few breaths. Her funeral went rather peacefully. Nobody was wailing or crying too harshly. Everybody was quite joyous that her pain and suffering had been done. But it was a devastating, undeniable truth that that day could not be one for celebration, because that day we had lost an angel. And I'm not saying that because she's my mom. She was genuinely one of the fairest, kindest, most loving people that you could ever come across in your life. A few days after the funeral was over, my little family was surprised at supper time when my mother's lawyer came to our doorstep asking to talk to my father. After he was done speaking to my dad, he escorted me and my brother into a private room and surprised us by telling us all about that my mother had written us a will. It cannot come to our surprise that she had written a will because she had been sick, dying for the past few years. So it didn't really faze us that she had written a will. What did faze us, though, is that the contents of the will were somewhat contradictory with what kind of person my mother was in her life. I'd expected that my mother would leave all of her belongings split in 3 parts. 1 part for me, 1 part for my brother, and the last for my dad. But what came to my surprise was that when the lawyer had finally spoken up to read the contents of her will, he told us that my mother had left me her dog and then left all of her belongings, including her car, her apartment downtown, her mother's jewelry, and the money she had saved up in the bank for my brother. I was rather fascinated, as I had basically been left absolutely nothing by my mother. My mother had left me no inheritance other than the dog. I can certainly say she appreciated that dog quite a lot, but it couldn't be fair compared to my dad, who she left absolutely blank nothing. The bias that was shown through her choice of leaving her will was rather questionable, considering the truly fair and equalizing nature which my mother gracefully embraced. Nevertheless, it was no time to sit around and question whether my mother had left me money or not. Quite honestly, it was the last thing I could have ever cared about as my mind was too torn between the idea of having to accept that I was now alone and motherless in a world so cruel and so brutal, and all the disarray it would cause for my mental health. I moved on from that incident and didn't discuss it again, seeing as we had never been on the poor side and my mother's belongings weren't a deal maker or breaker. It was something that happened and that was left in the past, by me at least. A few years later, my brother met a girl at work and they ended up tying the knot after about 2 years of dating. Sadly, though, their relationship wasn't one for marriage, and they ended up being split only 3 or so years after they married, and it was rather bloody and brutal, might I add. They both hated each other's guts by the time the divorce was set in place. I don't even think they've spoken to one another till this day. Anyway, following my brother's divorce, his ex-wife and I met up at a coffee shop to her request. She asked me to apologize on her behalf for the distress their divorce caused on the family, as she had always been rather good with everyone. She mentioned one more thing that basically changed my perspective on a lot of things and truly made me dislike my brother. She told me that my mother didn't leave all of her belongings to my brother when she passed away years ago. My mother had actually requested that he give her will to the lawyer since she trusted him and couldn't go herself. Instead of sending the will to the lawyer, my brother opened it and basically replicated the letters and signatures off it to create another will. A will in which my mother leaves everything to my brother and not the one where she had done the opposite like the original one did. My brother had been really struggling financially at the time and found fraud and lies could get him out of it. I, of course, didn't really believe her words entirely. I even questioned whether it had any truth to it. It kept nagging at my brain until one day I just had to ask my brother to confirm or deny the story. I had no interest in asking him for any of the money or belongings back, as I've grown quite a lot over the years and am in no need for anything in return. And surely, he confessed that he had indeed faked my mother's signature on a will he wrote, and he left all of my mother's belongings and private estates to himself. He said it was because he needed money to provide for his dying business and fund his studies abroad, but I've barely uttered more than a paragraph to him since that day. It was truly traumatizing. Despite me being the one that asked him and created a safe space for him to confess to me, I felt like I got stabbed in the face and had to step back for a while and process that me questioning my dead mother's decision wasn't worth hammering myself over all those years when it proved itself correct. I'm not sure if my relationship with my brother will ever be all right again, but I can safely say that I'll never trust people the same, not even the closest and most trustworthy of them. I don't think there's much room for seeing if you're the good person or the bad one here, but I also don't think you should let your relationship with your brother fall down if it had no direct negative influence on your life. You all clearly love one another and need each other for support and love, and you shouldn't let money and finances ruin that. If you don't need the money or the things your mother was going to split on you, you should probably cut him some slack and let it go by after holding your grounds for a while. You deserve a happy, healthy support system, and the combination of your dad and brother can be just that. So don't let an idea take that away from you. Where's the dad in all of this? I honestly think it's strange that you could let it slip by without fighting for your mother's will and dying wishes. Even if you don't think your dad should be given what your mother left him, think of the heirlooms and jewelry she probably wanted to leave for you, considering that you are her daughter and loved one too. I think the least you can do is hold the silent treatment for a year or so. Your brother needs to understand the gravity and depth of what he did, at least so he never does it again if the chance presents itself. Next story. For starters, I absolutely adore my wife. She's my rock and has been an infallible beacon of light for me this year. I lost my job at the beginning of the year, and when things got tough, she buckled up, got a part-time job to help us stay afloat, and didn't have a single negative thing to say about it all. I finally got back on my feet again and wanted to do something nice for my wife once things settled down. She's a classic girly girl and loves to dress up, go out, etc. We really cut back this year, so when our finances felt stable, I wanted to splurge on something special for her. I bought her a diamond necklace, nothing too extravagant. We just got out of financial straits. I'm not turning around and blowing money I don't have. It's a single solitaire diamond that, in my opinion, was classy and elegant, but something she could wear on the daily. Cue to Thanksgiving dinner, and my wife wears the necklace to dinner. Her sister-in-law, her brother's wife, I'll call her Mary, notices the necklace and compliments my wife on it. My wife happily tells her how it was a surprise, and Mary agrees that it was a super sweet sentiment, compliments me on my choice, and overall the family thought it was a nice gift, especially knowing that we went through hard times. A few days after dinner, I received a text from the brother-in-law calling me an a-hole for using Thanksgiving dinner to show off and make it all about me. He said that I shouldn't have let my wife wear such flashy jewelry to dinner and upstage everyone, and that it was super selfish and conceited of us. I was stunned, to be honest, because the necklace discussion only lasted several minutes, maybe 5 to 10, and the rest of the family only had nice things to say about it. They seemed genuinely happy for me and my wife. I'm starting to feel like an a-hole because it's true that the family isn't incredibly well off, and something like my wife's necklace would be seen as something very luxurious. My brother-in-law says that I'm now putting pressure on him to get his wife something extravagant for Christmas. On the other hand, though, I don't feel like it's really my responsibility to care how brother-in-law feels about a gift I got for my wife, and that if he feels pressure, it's not on me. I don't know, was I the a-hole for talking about the gift during the dinner? Not the a-hole. A lovely gift got lovely compliments at a recent gathering. You didn't roll into dinner with a big sign saying, "Hey, look at my wife's neck." Odds are, brother-in-law's wife has been after him before about giving crappy gifts, and her compliments about your wife's necklace were really aimed at him. Now he's mad because he'll actually have to get her something decent this Christmas. Clearly, you're the a-hole. How could you not have foresight and buy a diamond necklace for everyone that may see your wives like it and may not be able to afford it themselves? If you buy nice jewelry, the rule of thumb is buy at least 15 more to carry in your pockets in case someone else thinks it's nice and can't afford it. Why do you think so many rappers walk around with so many watches on? Next story. I'm 24 female and my sister is 26 female. I've been with my boyfriend Ben, 29, for 3 years. He's a stripper. I always knew because I met him when he was hired at my friend's 21st birthday party. I'm used to women throwing themselves at him. I can live with it because I know that he comes home to me every night and tells me about his day. He has a no-touching rule about the. So it doesn't bother me about what he does. Here's the problem. I'm not in his league and my sister uses this at every turn. He met my family a few months after we met, and she wouldn't stop flirting with him. She kept mentioning that I need to be careful he'll cheat. He came to a Halloween party as Aquaman. He's Samoan with long hair, so he looked the part, and my sister made inappropriate jokes. She'd say things like, "I've got $1 bills in my pocket." It was making him uncomfortable, so we left early. I text her that he is a man, not just a stripper, and to treat him like it. She told me I was imagining things because I'm paranoid he'll leave me for someone more attractive. The next time was last Valentine's Day when her then boyfriend asked us all on a double date to a small casino opening. He was awesome, so I thought her attention would be on him. She would sneak in between me and Ben as we were playing so she could be near him. She'd blow on his dice for good luck, etc. Completely forgot about her boyfriend the whole night. My boyfriend is still friends with him to this day. Last weekend, her best friend held a bachelorette party that my sister had to organize as the maid of honor. I don't know many details, but I know it was the classic bachelorette. I didn't know what it was, where, or anything like that. So when Ben told me he was hired for a bachelorette party, when he often is, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. He got home and said, "We need to have a serious talk." I thought he cheated at work, so I was on edge. He told me that my sister had used her friend's details to book him and that he didn't know she was the one who hired him, or he would have passed it to one of his friends. She was all over him, giving him money and encouraging him to take it all off. She knew he didn't take underwear off. It's one of the first questions she'd asked when he met my family. I drove to her house and confronted her. She told me he was the only stripper she knew and that she had an obligation to hire one for her friend's party because she was like a sister to her. I am her sister. She said he was lying about that night and that she took a backseat. She said it was all in my head because I knew he would leave me. I called her a manipulative witch, using her friend as a way to get what she wants and for trying to put this on me out of jealousy, and she closed the door and called my father. That just so happened hated me being with a stripper anyway. They're both mad at me for making it personal and causing drama in the family. I've just had a talk with Ben and we discussed it. I asked if he wanted to take a break until I made my sister not, well, be her. He didn't want that. I said I would support him taking legal action against her, but he's convinced that being a stripper sets him back already. Not the a-hole. I'd keep your sister away from your relationship, not because it seems like you have to worry about him, but you do have to worry about her and her intentions. Not only that, but she makes both him and you very uncomfortable with her words and actions towards him. She may try and sabotage your relationship by the sounds of how she's already being. Time to separate yourself from her for a while. Not the a-hole. Sounds like time to spend less time with your sister and dear old dad. Your boyfriend sounds fantastic with good boundaries and a strong self-esteem, and you should take a page from his book. He isn't out of your league. He's with you because he wants to be with you, and that's what's most important. Don't subject him or yourself to your sister's bad behavior anymore. She's definitely jealous that she can't stay in a relationship with a decent man due to that glaring, ugly personality of hers. Keep your chin up and your boundaries firmly in place. Next story. My sister started a company last year. I was feeling stifled in my last career path and I wanted to do something different. I jumped in with my sister. It meant a massive pay cut and increase in responsibility. We can live comfortably off his income, so we didn't change our lifestyle at all. I'm learning new things every day. I loved working with my sister. She's smart and talented. There is always a new challenge that we have to solve. I'm doing things that I never imagined I could. The hours are longer, but I love every second of it. We were supposed to go out last week, but I had to cancel because we had an issue with a vendor which needed to be dealt with. I apologized, but he is very upset about it. I've had to prioritize the business a few times before, but he always has been understanding. I usually get back home after he's gone to bed, but he was waiting for me that day. He was stewing and he was really angry. He said I was being an errand girl for my sister and I should realize my own value. He said my job was an absolutely crappy deal for our family as I was gone longer and we made less money. He said he wanted me to quit my job and find something which paid better. I told him that I wouldn't be quitting. I loved what I did and I hated that he was undermining my work. He just stopped arguing with me and said we could talk about it later. I feel like an a-hole because this is literally the first time my husband is this angry and bitter. I've never seen him this upset. He's being very withdrawn and he is purposely working longer hours so we don't really see each other. I feel like I messed up here. My husband is upset and hurt and I don't want to quit at all. Oh boy, do you want to stay married? He's upset that you're working more hours and bringing in less money. That is a very valid complaint from a partner. Basically, you're sacrificing your relationship time and not exchanging it for any benefits. Less money is also less comfort and time in the future. What you're doing with your sister makes you feel great, but that is 100% for you, not your relationship. First off, this is your sister's company. You're working all those extra unpaid hours to benefit her. You should be a partner or work a reasonable amount for what you're paid. But you definitely need to stop pretending that your husband is unreasonable for wanting a marriage. You're the a-hole. As the only wage earner in my family, I would be pretty unhappy if my husband did what essentially sounds like a hobby until after I had gone to bed. You're putting pressure on him to keep earning while not providing your fair share of either money or time. It sounds like you're living a fun life with your sister while he just pays the bills and eats and watches TV alone each evening. I'm going with you're the a-hole.